Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We'll get started in a minute. So, we'll quickly cover the agenda for today. My name is Anal Patel, and I'm the Director of Product Marketing at Tango, and I will be your moderator today. We'll start by introducing our speakers and then move into the webinar. The first part of the webinar is focused on how to build a framework for customer success, and the second part on seeing it in action at Sysomos, a customer of ours. I know we have a few of our customers joining us today, and I think you'll find Jeff from Sysomos' presentation very valuable and an interesting use case. We've also saved some time at the end for Q&A, so if you have any questions on the topics or material presented, please enter your question anytime in the Ask a Question tab at the top of the webinar player. If you're having any audio issues, please check your network connectivity. That usually seems to take care of any issues. And finally, we are recording this session, and a replay link will be posted on our company website under the resource section immediately following today's event. It will also be emailed out to those that could not attend but did register. For those of you who are not familiar with the Tango, please allow me to introduce our company. We are a leader in the customer success management space for online subscription service businesses, and we're really focused on helping smart people and companies such as yourselves succeed. We do this by taking a data-driven approach to nurturing, protecting, and growing your customer base. So think about increasing onboarding, reducing churn, improving upsells, etc. So what we do for you is monitor your customers' behavior and usage within your application, along with other critical data, and generate insights on customer health and engagement that you can then use. If you're interested in learning more about what we do, please visit us at tango.com or send us an email if you want to learn more. And also, if you're looking for more of this type of content that we'll be presenting today, which is really about taking theoretical information and then showing how it's applied in practice, I encourage you to attend the 3rd Annual Customer Success Summit in San Francisco. It's an industry-focused event. It's not just a vendor event. That's really around thought leadership and practical implementations. I believe some of our speakers today will also be attending. You can learn more about it at www.customersuccesssummit.com. We have there is, I believe, an early bird special still going on. We have saved $200 off the conference ticket, and it expires at the end of the month, so check it out soon. And without further ado, let me introduce our speakers. We have joining us today our guest speakers. We have Kate Leggett, who is the VP and Principal Analyst at Forrester Research. She's going to be presenting the first half of the webinar on going beyond the old CRM model. And then we have Jeff Cann, who is the Senior Director of Client Experience at Sysomos, who's going to be talking about how he built out customer success practice at Sysomos, along with best practices and lessons learned along the way. So, Kate, let me hand it over to you.
Thanks, Anal, and thanks to everybody on this webinar who've taken an hour out of your busy days to listen to all of us speak today. So I want to start off the webinar off by explaining why we care about customer success and the economic impact that customer success management can have on your company's revenue. But before I do so, I really want to take some time to set the stage about the age that we live in and why it's so important to ensure that your customers today are realizing the value, the economic value from their purchases. So let's start with a bit of history. And we know that technology evolved through a set of cycles that span about 20 years. And today, we're in a cycle that Forrester is calling the age of the customer. And what this means is that customers, like all of you on the phone here, you control the conversation that you have with companies that you do business with. And what this means is that companies have to become a lot more obsessed with delivering experiences and engagement in line with your expectations to be able to garner your satisfaction and your long-term loyalty. And another characteristic of this age that we live in, where customers control the conversations that they have with companies that they do business with, is that our world has moved to a subscription economy. And instead of buying products via capital expenditure, we subscribe to products today, which is more attractive because monthly costs are often more easy to rationalize in large purchases. And you can just look around you and see what industries have moved to this model. I mean, in our consumer lives, you think about media and entertainment, companies that offer products via subscription. Think of Amazon, who's made shipping a service. And in the business world, you think of technologies like Yammer for collaboration, Box for content management, Google Apps for office productivity. And when you drill into corporate application software spending, what you see is that these applications have moved from purchasing on-premise software to purchasing software as a service. And you look at specific software categories in the business world. Things like Salesforce automation, e-learning, marketing automation, human capital management. And all of these technologies are being purchased today and purchased and implemented almost exclusively via subscription. And then you look at some other software categories. Things like customer service software, collaboration software, finance and accounting software. And these we see at Forrester, they're trending to being purchased and implemented via subscription. And our data shows that on-premise software spending dropped by 16% in 2013, and this trend is continuing to date. And then on the other hand, spending for software as a service, corporate application software, has risen 53% for software implemented in a private cloud and 14% for software implemented as a private cloud. So all these numbers show that not only in our consumer world, but in the business world, technology applications are being purchased via subscription instead of via capital expenditures. And what this is doing, what the subscription model is doing, it's putting much more emphasis on relationships. And then think back, take a step back, and think back to when products were purchased. The emphasis and energy went into making the sale. But once the sale was made, you tended to lose track of the customer, the way they were using the product, and even if they had implemented the product. In the subscription economy, you have this long-term relationship with your customer. And because of the age we live in, as customers have become more demanding, customers are only staying loyal to companies when the companies are able to deliver value to them. So the focus shifts from just focusing on acquiring customers to maintaining these customer relationships for the duration to deliver ongoing value to these customers. Then you think about a company's life cycle. In a subscription economy, when a company is just starting out and you don't have a lot of customers, you tend to focus on customer acquisition and making sure that they're properly onboarded. However, as your company grows, you look more and more to retaining your customers and minimizing churn. And this is because as your companies grow, revenue from existing customers become a larger and larger part of the company's economic value. And minimizing churn becomes increasingly important. And the importance of retaining customers can be easily quantified. And here I've put together some quick numbers for you to be able to understand the importance of minimizing churn. So here, take two software as a service companies, and each adding customers at a steady rate of 10 customers per month. And each customer is paying say, $1,000 per month. And then consider the cost of acquiring customers is the same for both companies. So the company who follows this green trajectory line is maintaining a 95% retention rate for its customers. And the company following the blue growth trajectory is maintaining an 80% retention rate. And so for this calculation, consider the cost of acquiring customers is the same for both companies. Say it's $1,200 a month per customer. So 5 years later, the green company has acquired 600 customers, but they've only lost 30 because they have a 95% retention rate. Now look at the blue company. They've acquired the same number of customers, the same 600 customers, but they've lost 120 customers in 5 years. Now, if you compare the run rates for both companies, the green company, after 5 years, has a run rate of $6.3 million. The blue company, on the other hand, has a run rate of $4.5 million, which comes out to a difference of $2 million in revenue at the 5-year mark. And this translates well to a quantifiable difference in company valuation. And so this means that in the subscription-based economy that we live in, it's becoming increasingly important to reduce churn, and that managing churn has a real quantifiable revenue impact. And in this example, it's $2 million of difference between the blue company and the green company. And the effect of retaining customers is often underappreciated because the impact is cumulative. It can be really modest at first, but then it's much larger if you look 3 to 5 years out. So, because of the importance of supporting customers in a subscription economy and focusing on making them successful by helping customers realize the economic value of their purchases, there's a new organizational role that's emerged. And it's called Customer Success Management. And their job is to manage the customer's journey to reduce churn, increase existing revenue, and influence new sales. And the Customer Success Organization has 3 main roles: actively managing and monitoring a customer's journey with your product, leveraging a health score to understand the customer's progress along the journey, and engaging customers at the right time using a combination of personal, high-touch activities and automated customer nurturing activities to ensure that your customer is successful. So, and we're going to drill into these 3 topics for the rest of my part of the webinar. So, customer success managers have to actively manage a customer's journey with a product. And this is important because you've got to realize that a customer can churn at any time during their journey with your product. For example, if provisioning and onboarding doesn't happen successfully, customers may not even start using your product, and they'll end up churning at renewal time because they didn't get any value out of your product. If customers aren't taught how to use your product the right way and don't get value out of its initial use, customers may, again, question the investment in the product. And if a customer, for example, learns how to use the product, but they're not getting the full value of the product because they haven't learned about best practices or tips and tricks in using your product, again, they may not be getting the full value of your product. So what you have to do is you have to manage each step of the customer's journey, from initial provisioning to onboarding to making sure that the customer is using the full product footprint and realizing the economic value of the product. And you need to help them understand how it can be best used in the greatest number of scenarios, or how the full functional footprint of the product can be used. And if your customers are successful with the product, then you can have conversations about increasing the number of users who are using the product, increasing the product usage within the company, and as well looking having your customers look at additional products like cross-sells and upsells for purchase. And so to be able to actively manage a customer's journey with a product, you want to rely on monitoring a customer's health score. And the health score is an indicator of the customer's likelihood of churning. And the behavior of this health score, meaning how it's trending upwards or downwards, can be monitored. It can be monitored at the aggregate level, at the company level, at the subscription level. It can also be monitored at the individual user level. And monitoring this health score and understanding how it's trending is at the heart of being able to manage your customers. So how do you calculate a health score? A health score is calculated from a range of data. First of all, who's using the product? Are users logged in, and are they using the application regularly? Are all the purchase licenses being used? What's the business outcome being realized? And this tells you if the customer is getting the end result that they purchased the product for. And these three attributes are what we call objective inputs, and they cover 100% of the customers who are using your product. Now, there's also some subjective inputs, and this, again, these inputs don't come from all the customers who are using your product. And the first input, and again, all of these attributes end up making your health score, is, for example, customer satisfaction metrics, which is gathered by feedback surveys from your customers and from your success managers, as well as support and operations data. For example, how many tickets have been filed, how many are still open, what the SLAs were in resolving these tickets, and, for example, whether there have been any invoicing issues. So once you have this health score, you need to do something with it, and you need to act on what the health score is telling you. And what you need to do is you need to create these success workflows to nurture your customers, and these workflows are dependent on where you are or where the customer is in their journey. Are they at the onboarding phase? Are they at the adoption phase? Are they at the retention phase? And what I want to do is quickly delve into some of these workflows. So success workflows, again, are ways that customer success teams can engage in a very standardized way with not only the stakeholders, the people who have purchased the product and who are responsible for the overall success of the product, but the actual users of the product. And what you want to do is you want to drive better engagement, which then translates into loyalty and then churn reduction. So looking at success workflows for users, these are workflows which could drive, for example, more successful onboarding and product adoption. And you can collect data to understand who's using your product. Again, what users are provisioned, who's not using the product. And then what you can do is you can define intervention workflows to help better onboard customers, like sending them login reminders or pointers to instructional videos and tutorials, to invitations to collaborate with peers who are successful in using the application. And then this data, health scores, can also be used to understand what features are being used, whether the stickiest product features are being used, and whether they're being used in the right way. And again, these insights can trigger workflows to help guide users to best practices. And then for stakeholders, the goal of these success workflows is, again, to make sure that your stakeholders are realizing the economic value of their product investments. You are able to communicate about how users are using the product, the number of active users, features and functions being used, and this in combination with the business objectives of the company can help customer success managers make the business case for stakeholders, and make sure that the company is, again, realizing the value of the product. And again, when the health score dips low, this can be early warning signs of interventions, and you can kick off processes to intervene and to nurture your customer back to health. Okay, so these success workflows, they don't, and activities, they don't always need to result in a phone call to an end user or a stakeholder. They don't all have to be high-touch activities. Customer interactions will be a combination of high-touch activities, obviously, like meetings, a phone call, a quarterly business review, but they will also include low-touch activities, like a personal email to all product users, as well as automated activities like invitations to best practice webinars or training videos. And it's really important to use a combination of all these types of activities to continuously interact with the companies that are using your solution. And this balance is important because it allows your customer outreach to scale as your customer base grows without having to add headcount. So, to be successful at customer success management, you obviously need the right data to be able to create a health score. You need to be able to create these success workflows or to be able to manage your customers. But you also need to hire the right people and give them the right tools to do their job. And you got to realize that customer success management is a new role for companies. And there is no standard organizational structure for customer success managers today. We see it really residing in three places in the organization: in sales, in customer service, and in operations. And we believe that as this role matures, we expect to see more of a standard organizational reporting hierarchy emerge. So very quickly, when we see this role residing in sales, we see this in companies where there's a lower level of product complexity, where there's a clear distinction between hunters and farmers. Hunters are responsible for driving new sales, and farmers are the ones who are serving as account manager to provide the support existing customers. And they are typically responsible for, these account managers are typically responsible for renewals, and they're goaled on customer retention as well as revenue expansion. When we see the customer success management organization within a customer service organization, we tend to see this happen in companies that have more complex products. And here they take the role of a trusted advisor, and their goal is to achieve a high level of customer satisfaction, which then drives retention. And these customer success managers, when they reside in a customer service organization, they're not responsible for renewals, and they're not responsible for revenue expansion or new sales. And there's no clear measure for their success. We see that in some companies, this role can be commission-based, and others tie compensation to renewal success, for example. When this role exists in operations, we tend to see this happen in companies that have more complex products and have more mature organizational structures. And here there's a clear delineation in responsibility. Customer success managers own the customer, sales is responsible for new business, and customer service is responsible for support. And again, as this organizational role matures, we expect to see a standard organizational structure be defined. In all cases, irrespective of where the customer success management role lives, it's very important to hire the right profile for customer success. So customer success managers they're account managers, but they have domain expertise, and they can work at all levels up an organization to make their customers successful. They're good, they're passionate about serving their customers, they're great relationship builders. They can work at all levels of the organizations, from the stakeholders all the way down to the end users. They've got a very proactive can-do attitude. They're technical enough. They don't need to code, though. And they bring domain and best practice expertise to the table. And many companies are looking to empower their customer success management teams with customer success solutions. And there's a number of vendor solutions that are available to help customer success management teams out. And when you start exploring the space, you want to make sure that the tool that you have offers, first of all, a way to collect and synthesize data from all the back-end systems that you need to tap into, like CRM systems, ERP systems. You also want a solution that has a way of like cleansing and deduplicating data so that you have clean data to work off of. You want a solution that has that's able to offer data analysis, insights, things like predictive models to help you identify the key elements for churn, which may often not be straightforward to identify, or to pinpoint things like customers more likely to churn, or customers more likely to purchase additional products for revenue expansion. You want a solution that has a range of configurable out-of-the-box reports to be able to quickly monitor things like account health, onboarding status, product usage, renewal opportunities. You also want to be able to configure your own health score so that you can build a health score that's specific to your business. You want the solution to have, obviously, detailed analytics to help visualize, to help explore the data, to help discover insights that allow customer success teams to focus on the right customers. And then, obviously, you need triggers and alerts to be able to kick off workflows. And these workflows are a combination of automated workflows as well as high-touch activities. So before I hand it off to Jeff, just to wrap it up, customer success management, it's not about just technology. It's about, first of all, it's a combination of having discipline in 4 areas. It takes the right strategy. What is your customer engagement strategy? What are the processes that you want to follow to be able to engage with your customers, from high touch to low touch to automated touch? What are the processes for onboarding versus product usage versus retention? What are the processes when a customer is at risk of churn? You need to be able to have the right data to be able to understand how your customers are doing. Are they successful with using your solution? And then you want to hire the right customer success managers and crystallize their roles and responsibilities, whether they reside in sales or customer service or operations. Again, you need that right profile of proactive can-do manager with the right domain expertise to be able to help companies again realize the economic value of their purchase. So again, customer success management, very important in the age that we live in, and it takes discipline in the right strategy, process, data, and people. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff Cann, who's going to talk to you about how he built the customer success role at Sysomos.
Great. Thank you very much, Kate. So first off, very excited to be here today in support of the Tango and alongside Kate and Forrester. Just as some quick background, so Sysomos has been using Tango for the last year now, and we've seen some excellent results in its ability to unlock some data that wasn't previously available. And so I'm going to speak to that a little later on in the presentation. But to start, I'd like to suggest that there's not going to be one size fits all approach as it pertains to customer success, and it's going to be different for a few reasons. The first is, and Kate touched on this, there's just a huge array and variety of business models, of products, of services, of go-to-market strategies to have sort of a blanketed approach. And the second is that not every organization is going to commit to customer success to the same degree, and so their models may differ slightly. That being said, though, there are some universally applicable best practices and frameworks that I think can be shared, and SystemO specifically, we've seen some really strong results in the past year. So today I'm going to walk you through what those results are, as well as some of those best practices that I've picked up along the way. Just by way of background, Sysomos is a SaaS-based social intelligence application. So we collect data from a number of social media sources, the Twitters, the Facebooks, Instagrams of the world. We're ingesting close to 1 billion results a day, 4 terabytes of data a day. So it is a big data environment, and we layer on top of that data things such as text analytics, automated sentiment, influencer identification, viral analysis, so that our customers can glean insights. So I've been with Sysomos since 2009, and at the end of 2013, I started my existing role, and the objective was to put together a customer success framework in order to reduce churn amongst a number of other goals. And so I thought it'd be interesting today to start off my presentation by first jumping right into what those results were. And then we're going to work back, and I'm going to show you and speak to the steps we took and the organization that we built to drive those results. So to jump right in then, fiscal year 2014, we experienced a 25% reduction in churn overall. And when we cut into the different segments that we service, we saw improvements across the board. It was a steady improvement from Q1 to Q4, and saw some really promising gains, especially around the GB and SMB space. Some additional KPIs that I can share. So the enterprise sector, very important for our business, number of key accounts. We have 9 of Interbrand's top 10 global brands. So happy to report a 95% renewal rate there. Employee retention. So I'm going to speak to employee retention in a minute, and Kate spoke to the importance of hiring the right people. This plays a pretty big part of our strategy and our approach, but employee retention has been 100%, and as well, client requests for retainers. So this isn't a KPI for us per se, but it is a barometer that really showed that the elevation of our support levels, the shift up the value pyramid from support to partner, it really started to manifest itself in the types of requests that we were getting from our customers. So those results didn't just happen, I can promise you that. And before I get into the how, I want to first talk about the why. And in our case, leading into 2014, it wasn't just a question of do we want to focus on service, but to what degree do we want to differentiate service in the marketplace? Do we want to make this a key differentiator that our brand's known by? And I think a lot of you on the phone right now are probably going through very similar situations, right? You're either validating spend for your department, you're validating your department to begin with, and that's normal because service isn't the only mechanism in which you can differentiate your brand with, right? There's product, there's image, there's channel, and in our case, we chose service. It isn't the only horse that we attached our buggy to, but it was a commitment that we made that we wanted to differentiate ourselves in the market. And there's some supporting factors that brought us to that decision, many of which we just heard from Kate. But when we took a step back and looked at our market, and we take a look at the maturity model for social analytics and intelligence, in our estimation, we're still in the early innings. We're in the early phases. And new customers regularly show up to our doorstep And they're really looking for a lot of guidance and education around, not only the usage of our product, but how to best deploy it. What are some of the use cases they should be looking at? What are some of the KPIs they should be using when looking at and analyzing social media data? So there's certain exceptions to this, but without filling that gap with support and being that trusted advisor, in our opinion, we were just asking our customers to leave. The other reason that we decided to differentiate in the service is because the space that we're involved in, and this is meant to be an eye chart, so don't squint your eyes too hard, but the landscape that we are in currently, the social media analytics space, it's dynamic, it's changing very quickly, and even though we're still in the early innings, there's a lot of choice for customers. And whenever you're in that situation, whenever a customer's in that situation, they look for more than just a product or just a point solution. They really look for guidance and they look for support. The other element to this is that there's a lot of gorillas in our space. Companies such as Oracle, such as IBM, Salesforce, Adobe, and there's lots of VC money pouring in. So there's a question you have to ask yourself: with companies this large and with the amount of funding coming in, you have to be careful because parity can be purchased in some cases quite quickly. And service we saw as a way to sustain a long-term competitive advantage in the marketplace. Last comment around why service for us, and this is just a quote that really hit home with me and that we like to kind of rally around internally. Some of you might be familiar with Bessemer Ventures, a Silicon Valley VC house. This quote, really meant a lot to me, and I just love the sentence. The only acceptable reason to lose a customer is death or marriage. It's pretty powerful, and also, my heart warms, reading the first sentence. Software as a service it isn't about the software; it's about the service. So I keep on trying to hang this up in the engineers area, but for some reason they disagree. But nonetheless, those were sort of the high level thought process that service made sense specifically for us. So that's a little background on why service makes sense. It's sort of now time to put the team together. And if I were to weight all the success factors, I would say that the functional architecture of the team, of the customer support team, and the success team is one of the biggest elements to our success. And you can have the most elegant applications that you're running, you can have the most intelligent BI systems in the world, but if the client team isn't designed properly, you're not going to be successful. So if I go back to how our support team was set up in 2013, it was similar to most SaaS companies out there. So we had an account management function coupled with a general non-client designated support team. And this support team would handle everything from training to onboarding to product questions to daily questions. It was all done through that general team. And this challenged us in a few ways. The first is that our observation was that the intelligence that we gathered, the intimacy that we created during the onboarding phases, in many cases was lost once the client solutions was architected and deployed. And no amount of prolific CRM note-taking could overcome that. The other challenge that we found was really what I spoke to earlier, and it pertains to where we are in the adoption curve and the need for intimate levels and support. So in 2014, we coupled together the account management and support teams such that every customer had at least 2 points of contact, the business relationship owner and the product support owner. And this is a static team. It's a consistent team that allowed us to get really a lot wider and deeper within organizations. We own 100% of the customer lifecycle, and there's no silos of information or there's no disconnect between the customer experience and how they interface with us. And also it allows us to establish relationships at the C-level just as easily as we could at the user level very seamlessly. So if I were to boil down just from the team perspective, the structure of the team perspective, some best practices, the first is really count the number of touches and walk a mile in your customer's shoes. And if there's more than 2 to 3, I would argue that it's too much. The next is matching clients with people. I can't underestimate how important getting the right personality and the right interest fit between the customer and the success team is. So as an example, we have a gentleman on our team that is very passionate about sports, and he works with a lot of our sports clients. And for that individual, the job is no longer a job. Those lines get blurred, and he's absolutely delighted to be involved in the work that he's doing. You know, to the degree that you can do that, it just pays dividends. And if there's not always an interest fit, and we might not always be in a position to do that, then a fit based on personality is very, very strong. And then the last point here is you don't lose customers you visit. So to the degree that you can do business reviews in person, to the degree that you can get executive sponsorship, it truly does pay dividends. I know there's the economic, question of that, but whether it's segmenting clients or what have you, it's a strong best practice in my mind. So with the team architecture in place, we were ready to execute, and to do that, we had to nail down what our approach to the customer is. And by approach, I'm referring to what's the tactical, what's the strategic framework that we would train our teams on and that we would execute in, day out. And there's four basic elements then to our strategy, and I will say that all of them have to be successful for the entire strategy to be successful. So we can't hit it out of the park on experience and fall down on listen. So the rest of my presentation, I'm going to walk through in detail, what these pillars are and what my experience has been in terms of rolling them out. So the first pillar in our approach is engage, and this is actually an internal metric, and when I say engage, we're actually referring to how engaged employees are. And this is I mentioned this earlier, this is a critical pillar for us. And the foundation of this is actually a philosophy that comes from a study out of Harvard University called the service profit chain. And what the service profit chain did was it looked at a number of industry-leading companies, and industry-leading was defined as highly profitable and high growth. And so they took a number of different industries, and the focus of the study is, what is the common thread between all these companies that made them so great? What is that piece, that ribbon that ties them all together? And if you picture an actual, a chain, and at the end of that chain is high growth and high profit, and you follow the sequence of events back to the origin they found were highly engaged employee bases. And when I say that, these are companies that had strong people managers, a point that Kate hit on earlier, excellent training, rigorous interview process. They recognized and rewarded performance. And so these were all characteristics that we really embodied and focused on. And having 100% retention, is a spin-off of that, and there's a number of benefits from that. Consistency in customer relationships, internal mentoring, a retention of tribal knowledge. It spills over. And a great example of this is Amazon, as well as Zappos actually. But Amazon, at the end of training, they pay employees $2,000 to leave the company. And so they're quite confident in the culture they've built, the engagement plan, the engagement philosophy that they've built. Otherwise, really they'd be cutting a lot of checks. So best practices around engaged. We conducted an internal employee survey to gauge, how we're doing as a company, and to act on the feedback we collect. And the I have a best friend at work question. This is a question that's actually widely recognized as a critical barometer. And teams that have a best friend at work, coworkers that have a best friend at work, they collaborate more. There's a spirit of not wanting to let one another down, and there's truly a long list of benefits. Let personality and creativity shine. So this sort of speaks for itself, but while it's important to have process and standards in place, the best thing we can do as managers really is get out of the way. And social media is a great channel for that we promote all of our employees to utilize as much as they can. And then lastly, create a cross-dependent metrics-driven company. So one of the hallmarks of an engaged employee base is transparency and communication around performance. And the degree that you can manage performance by creating, as an example, a company-wide NPS target, company-wide product adoption rates, measuring with a system, such as the Tango, the more powerful the lift and the level of accountability that we've seen. The next pillar to our strategy was experience, and I'd argue that in any business transaction, in any sort of service that you experience, whether it's buying a coffee, whether it's buying a car, going to a restaurant, you're going to have one of three different experiences. The first is going to be completely random, and we've all experienced that. Been to a restaurant and ordered the same meal more than once, and it comes out completely different each time. So that's really the bottom of the food chain. Don't want to be there. The next step up here is having a predictable experience with a company. And this is an improvement because they exhibit the qualities of being consistent and being intentional. There's a process in place. There's a recipe that's followed, and the outcome is much more preferable. The problem with resting there, though, and assuming your job is done there, though, is that if we take a look at the stat above here, 60 to 85% of customers who switch to competitors report being satisfied. So if you're predictable and only predictable, you're not in the eyes of the consumer differentiating your product, and you don't know if there's value there. The area that we focus on, that Sysomos focuses on, that we build a lot of our practice around and are continuing to build as the practice evolves is delivering branded customer experiences. So as some quick sort of examples, consistency. So internal training is a strong example here. No one in this company would speak to a customer within, say, 30 to 45 days of being on the job. And employee retention, I mentioned that either. That's another great way to deliver consistency. The longer folks are in their job, the more functional they are, the more efficient they're going to be. Intentional, so having a client life cycle that we follow, and this is another key element that Kate hit on earlier. So what are the actions and activities on the onboarding phase, on the adoption and the maintenance phase, and then we have slightly different activities that we would undergo during the renewal phase. Differentiation, so service is an area we stuck a stake in the ground and said, hey, this is an area that we want to differentiate on. And then lastly, value to the customer. So this is what keeps me up at night. How do you truly know that your customers are getting value from your product or service? It's one thing to observe them being busy and using your application a lot, but that doesn't necessarily always equate to value. And so one way to understand that is by simply asking and sort of documenting what's your business objective and following up with a quarterly business review. But the other way to get at that and to try to triangulate on that is through how you listen. And I'm going to get into our toolkit for listening in a moment. So best practices from the experience pillar. Everyone is a business owner. So we noticed a dramatic improvement when we created that across all of our teams, that book of business approach. It really was pivotal in raising the bar in terms of the level of accountability and to the degree in which people were committed to. It's now literally their customer. Never assume your customer's an expert. So if you look at any value pyramid or value pyramid philosophy as it pertains to customers, usually advice, training, guidance is at the top of that pyramid. And so never assume your customer is an expert pertains to continuing to find opportunities for training. We have no aversion to that here at Sysomos. And another sort of best practice from that perspective is we're very proactive in asking to see the types of reports that our customers are generating using our data, and we will immediately be able to know the level of expertise that user has and what are some ways that we can help enrich their reporting. And then lastly, the power of the reoccurring meeting. So this sounds pretty simple, but this is what I'm referring to is literally the reoccurring meeting button in Outlook, for example, if you're using Outlook. At the very beginning of a relationship, clicking that button and getting a regular cadence that's in your customer's calendar is so powerful, and it sets the expectations ahead of time, and it creates an anchor that you can really manage around. So we found that to be quite useful. Last stage is the listen stage. So our toolkit has a number of different SaaS products in it. We drink our own champagne, so we use Sysomos to look at mentions of our brand via social media, as well as to monitor influencers and understand what our customers are saying and what our competitors are doing. We use the Tango, which I'll double click on in just a moment, to track feature usage, to take a look at license utilization rates, at the degree of which licenses are in good or poor health or are stable. We manage our client life cycle in a large part fueled by Tango data. So I'll drill into this in a bit more in just a moment. The next logo on the screen there is a product called Intercom, and so we use Intercom for time and behavior-based. It could either be a time or behavior-triggered email or in-app message. So as an example, if someone's gone to the help section more than 5 times, we can trigger a message that goes to them suggesting that we get on the phone and have a refresher training, just as one example. SAT metrics we use for NPS, using Desk for our support portal and ticket creation, which is in beta right now, and then Jira internally to document bugs and feature requests for clients. To Tango, so really what Tango has done for us is has taken this data that was previously sitting unused, untapped, and adding some color to it, but more importantly, it's getting our license utilization data in the hands of every single one of our staff. And as a manager, I can take a look at health scores by our business segments, by our success managers, by renewal dates, and it's been very helpful from that perspective. And I can also set up alerts for various stakeholders in the business. So it's a call to action, and it brings a lot of visibility and eyeballs onto not only features, but just in general, which customers are really adopting the product and which are not. Best practices on Listen. So, we have quite a few tools that we use. I didn't get overly hung up on making sure that every single product that we use, every application we use is connected to one another. I think you can lose a lot of valuable time, and you can drive yourself crazy just architecting the most elegant solution. So if there's some inherent value, my suggestion is to run with it, and the integration side of things can work itself at the end. Show your customers that you listen. So something as simple as Google Alerts, which we also use, it can be very, very valuable. So having Google Alerts set up as a trigger for your customers to find moments that you can generate valuable interactions with. So as an example, we had a customer who unfortunately had a plant burned down from a fire, and so the rep was alerted to that via Google Alert, and she proactively set up tracking in Sysomos and was able to deliver them some reports so they can get a degree of how much this topic was in the news. Annual reports are another really good place to show customers that you're listening. Typically, in an annual report, the CEO is going to lay out all of the company's core priorities for the upcoming year, for the upcoming quarter, and to the degree that you could get on that same page and sync up sort of your language, it's also going to pay dividends. And then lastly, personalize the experience. So, some thinking here is really around something as simple as a feature request. So we document in Jira the customer, the feature request, and once that feature is released, we can personally call them up and thank them for the idea. And we also use to Tango to personalize experiences. So if we're interacting with a customer, we can quickly pull up their usage patterns. If we can see that they haven't logged in a while, we're going to have a different conversation with that individual versus noticing that they're a power user around Twitter. We might spark up a conversation around something we have in beta as it pertains to Twitter. So we can really personalize the experience for the customer from that perspective. So that ends the formal part of my presentation, and I know we've got a few minutes left for Q&A, and so I will pass it back to our hosts.
Thanks, Jeff. That was really interesting. So everyone, thanks Kate, thanks Jeff, and for our attendees, I'd like to remind you at this time to rate the webinar if you get a chance. There's a rate the webinar button at the top of the webinar player. It really helps us, the feedback that you provide. So we're going to start the Q&A now. We've come towards the end of our time, so we only have about 5 minutes left, and I'm actually very amazed by the level of audience engagement, and we've received a ton of questions that I don't think we'll be able to get through all of them. But I don't want to stop the conversation, so I'm going to ask my guests if they don't mind afterwards responding to some of the some other questions, and then we'll share them with you via an email or a blog. But for the few minutes that we do have left, let's get started. So Jeff, this question is for you. People want to know about the way you've structured your team. For example, is every client assigned a CSM? When you mentioned the one-to-one model, how many clients do they, I guess it's a three-parter, I should say. Is every client assigned a CSM? How many clients do they typically manage? And should there be a fee or a charge for managing them? What's the point of view that you have on that?
Mm-hmm. So answer the first question is yes. Not only does every single customer have one point of contact, but they have two. They have one that owns the commercial relationship. They have one that owns the product relationship. And in terms of the number of customers, we look at that, and my opinion on that is based on, one way to look at that is a dollar amount, and each individual should be managing a book of business that equates to a certain dollar amount. That's one approach. Our approach really looks at the amount of product that's contained within a book, and we have some metrics around the amount of time typically it would take to support a license, for example. And so the model's built more on the amount of time it takes to support the product versus the amount of revenue. We'll also take a look at revenue just as a gut check as well, but it's more based on the amount of licenses. The next question is, where is it? How many clients? I think it's number of clients. It's going to vary, and we'll also segment. So we have a segmented model, and so I don't have a pat answer for you in terms of number of customers, but it's going to vary based on segment, and then a fee, service for fee. So we offer a certain amount of support that comes with the license, and our goal is not to track time. We're not, it's not a law practice. We're not counting hours. Our goal is making sure that everyone's successful and that they're happy, and we have sort of stipulations in our contracts, more as just a business mechanism. But at the end of the day, it's really an assurance that our customers are successful, and we don't have a professional services arm. So as with any company, we would have a fee if we were to go fly on site, for example. But we don't have a professional services arm to the company.
Kate, we have about a minute left, and I wanted to ask one for you. There's a question around, you talked a lot about where the customer success team fits and what the values are, but what about the marketing team? How does that fit into customer success? What part should they play?
So I've interviewed a lot of customer success or managers of customer success teams, and I've never seen it in the marketing organization, and it tends to be because the marketing team does not own the customer and doesn't as well either own the support process or the renewals process. I've seen customer success management teams actually directly report to the CEO, but again, I've never seen it in marketing. That being said, everyone within the company, from customer service to sales to marketing, should have the same understanding of who the customer is and their overall health score. And so those customer insights should be uniformly available to all organizations within a company to be able to, again, provide that consistent experience to the customer. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, we have our webinar is actually going to cut off directly at 60 minutes. So what I'm going to do for our attendees is we have a list of about all the questions. I'm going to get them, send them through to Jeff and Kate and ask, and hopefully they can send us some answers, and we'll share those with you afterwards. So let's really quickly thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kate, Jeff, for your time. This was really informative, and we appreciated your time and really the great insights that you've brought. Please leave your ratings and webinars, and our guests have said that you should feel free to email or tweet them if you have any particular questions of your own, if you don't want to wait for me to get around to it, and we'll keep the conversation going. Thanks so much for attending this webinar. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Kate.
Thank you.